to this week's edition of Abraham Chicks, and this is the show with amazing women who are actually living the law of attraction and beyond. My name's Tina, I'm your host, and I'm really excited for our guest today. Our guest today is Ashley Romano. Hi, Ashley.
Oh, hi.
So nice to have you here. I can't wait to share your story. Ashley is pretty much what you would call a lifestyle coach or mentor, but basically you're just helping people to maximize their life in the best way that they possibly can.
Yes. I help women to sort of live their best life, their healthiest life, embracing self-love, self-care, and taking care of their body regardless of what size their body is at.
Yay, that's what we want. We want that self-love. And I know it's so interesting because I think a lot of us as women go through that stage, in our journey where we recognize that self-love is the key. And it's that whole, I can love myself unconditionally no matter what. But there's still some edges around that. So I know your story is probably what has started you on this journey to help others. So let's go back to the beginning and, tell us where this all started. I think it was 8 or 9 years ago. You started on your own sort of transformation journey. What happened?
So it all started, now it doesn't start the way most people would expect it to start. You would think it starts with some amazing thing happening, but it was actually kind of the opposite for me. In 2009, I took a little bit of a risk and a leap of faith, and I packed up and moved my life from Massachusetts on the East Coast all the way to Los Angeles on the West Coast.
And what was the reason for doing that? Was it just a change of scenery or?
No, I felt like I wasn't from Boston. I was from a smaller city in Massachusetts. And I really just felt like I had a calling in me that I wanted something bigger and I wanted something more diverse. But I didn't know where to get that or what I wanted to do with it. I just happened to have friends who were going to college in Los Angeles. So I had visited them on vacation and thought okay, this is it. So then 6 months later, I decided to move there I was a hairdresser by trade. So I brought my shears and my blow dryer and I went to Los Angeles thinking I was gonna take over the world. At the time, I knew nothing about the law of attraction. I knew nothing about finances, and within a couple months I had run through all of my money, and I was on the verge of homelessness, so I actually began working as a prostitute, and it spiraled into one of my lowest lows of my entire life. So
how did you go from hairdresser to prostitute? I mean, that's honestly crazy.
I had gotten a job at a salon and they hired me really fast. Within 2 weeks of getting there, I got a job, but they wanted me to provide my own clientele. They didn't have a clientele like walk-ins. So I didn't know anybody in Los Angeles. And at the time, before I even got there, my self-esteem was already really low. And I was at a salon that was charging $120 a haircut. I had come from a salon that charged $38 a haircut, and people would complain about that. So my mindset was, I'm not enough for this. People can't afford this. And I was creating this story of that I'm not going to be able to bring people in, which ultimately that's what happened. I wasn't able to get the customers to come in, so I wasn't making any money even though I was hired for a job. So I started searching on the internet for little side gigs, like to see if I could get a job styling hair for a photo shoot or a wedding or a sweet 16 or anything. And while scrolling the classifieds on the internet, I came across escort ads, and eventually in my desperation, I applied for one, and that was how that happened.
Do you know, I mean, this is so interesting because there is no judgment on how you live your life or how you earn your money, but mindset is everything. So I'm curious, you found it difficult to charge a lot of money doing hairdressing. How did that correlate actually in a different profession of escorting?
Well, I was definitely not a high-end escort. I was not street walking or anything like that, but I was more in the middle range. And I think that it was a little bit different because I was working for somebody, a pimp for a lack of better word, and he was the one who set the price and gave the price. So there was I wasn't doing any of the selling per se. I just showed up when it was my time, but I wasn't having to convince anybody that I was worth them paying a certain price for me. If that had been the case, I'm sure I would have been, much more concerned or thinking that I deserved less, because that was kind of the story of my life at that time.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. And so what I mean, how was that experience? Did it increase your feelings about yourself or decrease them?
It was really weird. This is kind of the yin and the yang, I would say. There was parts of it at the time. Now, I'd always been overweight, like severely obese. I was about 300 pounds. So the idea that I had this illusion in my head. I grew up without a dad. I'd never really had boyfriends or anything like that. So I grew up with the idea that men don't like me. So then and then on top of that, I'm a poor person. So the idea that money was so important to me and that a man would be willing to give me his hard-earned money because he wanted to spend time with me in the beginning was actually felt a little bit empowering. Yeah. But this ended up going on for 5 years. And by the end of the 5 years, it was working in the opposite end because I was starting to feel like only my body was valuable, like I was not important as a person. And I started to experience a little bit of, I wouldn't say experience firsthand, but I became much more aware of the stigmas that people had around, people in my profession. When I wanted to date, for example, I felt like it was like this stamp on me, like, baggage that I couldn't bring into a relationship. So it kind of started to negatively affect me towards the end of it. But in the beginning, I would say it did help to build me up a little. But in the long term, it was definitely not a self-esteem inducing profession.
Yeah, but it's so interesting, and the more you sort of get into law of attraction and how it works, it's not all about, oh, I want the car or I want the house. It is really about attracting in things that you desire, and you actually wanted men to desire you and to appreciate your body. And okay, we don't always know the how it's going to happen, and we maybe don't plan the how, but actually you were being a powerful creator.
That is a beautiful way to look at it, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you got to the point where you were obviously ready to expand, and that's when you get the contrast and the contracting feeling of, wait a minute, my brain's worth a bit more than this now. Okay, I've got it down that my body feels good. So what happened next?
So it was kind of a weird thing. It all started with losing some weight. I found out my blood pressure was going up, and I had always been big, but I was never, I had tried dieting and stuff, but I was never super set on I wanted to lose weight because as far as the blood pressure and, diabetes and stuff were concerned, I was healthy. So I thought I didn't need to. But then when I found out my blood pressure was going up, I didn't want to be a statistic of a fat and unhealthy person. Like that was always my defense was, well, I might be big, but I'm healthy. And now that was not really happening anymore. So I got some more contrast. So I decided that I was going to lose some weight. And in the weight loss journey, I didn't do anything drastic. It was healthy eating and exercise. And slowly and surely, the weight actually started to come off. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm smaller now and this makes me feel happy. It was me doing this one thing that I never thought that I could do that slowly started to build up my self-esteem. And I started to feel like I had something in my life that I could be proud of, whereas most of my life until that point, at least my adult life, was really shame-filled. So slowly and steady, I started to really feel like, wow, like I can actually do things that I never thought that I could. And it gave me the inspiration and maybe the what's the word I want to use? I want to say balls. I'm just going to go with it. The balls.
Go for the balls.
The balls to do a lot of things that I never thought that I could. I mean, I ran obstacle races. I've finished an entire marathon, several half marathons, and it really just kind of opened up my mind to, wow, I'm capable of way more than I thought that I ever was. And even though it was in kind of the physical world, it really transferred over to my emotional world, my mental world, and it opened up a lot of doors for my personal growth in general, not just in the physical. And now it's kind of morphed where my life isn't so much about fitness and losing weight and weight loss, but just harboring and cultivating all of those good feelings that come with doing the things that you never thought that you could do.
Yeah, and I think that the valid point there as well is that you previously tried to diet and lose weight, and actually when the focus becomes more about feeling good and exercise, and then you feel that you're getting stronger, and then that motivates you into trying something else. It's so different from actually restricting yourself from food or eliminating parts of the diet. So I did something similar. I ended up doing a half marathon and Tough Mudder and things like that, and at the time I was just like, I don't believe I've agreed to do this, But then when you see the power of what your body can do when you put your mind to it.
Yeah.
So at what point did you realize that you were actually visualizing and almost and manifesting deliberately?
I would say that it was, well, that I actually realized it was probably not until about 2015. I had gotten my money together, I had gotten my weight together. I was paying my bills now. I wasn't, bringing in a lot of money, but I wasn't selling myself anymore. I was working normal jobs now. I had gotten my health, but I really knew that I was capable of making more money. So I hired a money manifestation coach. And she was kind of the first person. I had read The Secret before that and dabbled a little, but it was never, obviously we're always manifesting, but I was never manifesting with intent before that. And once I started working with the money manifestation coach, that was when I actually started doing it intentionally. And the cost of working with her was about $6,000 for a 6-month period. So broken up into payments, $1,000 a month. That was more than I was even paying for rent at the time. So my first kind of task in seeing like, okay, does this really work, was being able to manifest the money to pay this woman.
But what made you take that jump? Because that's huge. It's one thing to invest in coaches and mentors when you've maybe got some money, but to have gone through what you did, where you were really struggling, to then put $6,000, that's huge. Was it just because you connected with the mentor, or you just knew you were ready to do something?
It was kind of a combination of both. I knew I was ready to do something because I just felt something in me, and like, I cannot live like this anymore. Like, something in me was screaming, you are worth so much more than living paycheck to paycheck. Like, you are capable of more. So I knew I needed to do something big. When I spoke to her, and it was actually Law of Attraction that brought her to me, because a friend of mine had liked her page on Facebook, which showed me, oh, your friend liked so-and-so. And I assumed that he knew her. So I gave her, in my brain, a lot more credibility. Yeah. And then I ended up finding out like a year later that he had never met her, even talked to her. Like, he had just like, okay. But when I spoke to her, a lot of what she said really resonated with me. But I was terrified. Like, $6,000, even when she offered the payment plan and offered to let me pay as I go, I was still terrified. But I realized that everything that I had done in my life up to that point, if I was terrified to do it, it was one of the best things I had ever done for myself. So I knew that the fear and the feeling of resistance was something that I really needed to work through, which made me that much more motivated to like really push through it and figure this out. And then being able to do it, I made a ton of money over that 6 months, but even if I hadn't made a ton and I had just made enough to pay her, to me, it still would have been the proof that, wow, this works.
Yeah, but it's even better when it's more, isn't it? And I think it's just that power of saying yes, just saying yes to you, and then you make that choice, and then it opens up so many other opportunities.
Absolutely.
So in what kind of ways were you manifesting money at that time? Because, some people will watch this and they'll be like, yeah, but how does that really happen? Were you working? Were you bringing in new clients? How were you actually creating the money?
Okay, so I didn't go and get a new job or anything like that. At this time, I was working as a hairstylist still, and I was also starting the first ever coaching program that I offered, which she had helped me to come up with. So no new job or anything, just a new offering, I guess is the way to put it. But it wasn't like I ran out and went rogue and started messaging everybody. I know, would you like a coach? Would you like a coach? Would you like a coach? I put a page on my website that said that I offered this now. I maybe mentioned it a few times here or there on social media in conversation though. Like, I never pushed any real ads or anything like that. I think that the reason that it happened was the work that she was having me do behind the scenes. Looking back now, or sometimes when I share with people, they're like, really, that's it? But really, that's it. It was little things like praying before you pay. Every time I would spend money, I never even caught this in myself, but normally when I would pay for something in my head, I would be calculating like, okay, so now I have this much money left, or oh, this is going to set me this much behind, and all kinds of stories going on in my head. now I would hand over the card or hand over the cash and just think to myself, you know, thank God or thank the universe that I have the money to pay for this. Like, forget what's coming after. I also started a money journal. So every single time any proof of abundance of money would come in, I would write it down. So that would mean if somebody paid me for a service, or if I got a refund for something, or even if I got a discount on something, any little tiny bit of proof that would show me that, wow, I really am a money magnet, I would write down. And then on the days, which didn't happen often, but every now and then a whole day would go by where I didn't attract any money to me. And on those days, my instruction was to put a smiley face. Like, don't allow yourself to look at it as like, wow, I really screwed up today, I didn't attract anything. And then slowly but surely, with time, I started to really bring in a lot more money. And then the last part is donating or giving away. So before that, I was the type who would like see a homeless man asking for money on the corner and look the other way and like avoid eye contact and want nothing to do with him. And at this time, I started to think, one, I was becoming a much more compassionate person. I wasn't so angry anymore, so I didn't have all the feelings I used to have. But the idea was every single day I was going to give away something of value, whether it was $1 to a homeless person, or if I was going to buy a friend a coffee or buy somebody dinner, or it just had to be something that had monetary value. Like, of course, there are things with, other values that are not monetary that are super significant, but for the sake of manifesting money, it had to be monetary value. So I would give $1 to, like I said, any homeless person I saw. I kept ones in my glove compartment, so I always had ones. I would give it to the guy. If I had a friend who shared a GoFundMe fundraiser or something, I would give, even if it was only $5, I would give a little something. Or I saw a pair of boots that I knew my mom would love and they were on sale for only $15. So normally I'd buy the boots and then save them to give to my mom for Christmas or something. Instead, I bought the boots and I gave her the boots that day. And the first month that I did this, by the end of the month, I had made almost 3 times what I had ever made in any month before that. So it really was just signaling out to the universe, I am abundant, I can afford to give, and whatever I would give came back to me. And although maybe we could say in the beginning it was a little bit selfish because I was doing it to help bring money to myself, but in the end of it, I really do feel like I became a much less selfish person, a much more giving person, and I could really see the beauty in the gift that we get in giving.
Yeah, well, I think that's a fair thing to say. It's like a transition though, isn't it? The only reason we don't give is the fear that it's going to run out. Yes, that we don't, or that we don't have enough. So when you can switch your mindset and create that habit of trusting that when you give, you're actually going to get it back probably 10 times and then some, and then you can really enjoy the giving. Yes. That actually then is what fuels you to attract more. Mm-hmm. So your coaching then clearly was started around your weight loss, because 100 pounds is huge. I mean, sometimes I think, 10 pounds would be nice, and get bored after 4 pounds. How did you maintain, the momentum to keep going for 100 pounds?
So in the beginning, I lost the 100 pounds in a year. Like, it did not take me long. As soon as I saw the proof that, wow, this is working, I could not stop rolling with it. But to be honest, looking back now, and this is already almost more than 6 years ago, I don't know that I would do it the way that I did it again. I would say that in the beginning for me, in the very beginning, it was very, very healthy. I was so focused on, like we had talked about, just feeling good and feeling better about myself. I would say about a year in, once I had lost the 100 pounds, I kind of got sucked into this diet culture matrix of craziness and products and shakes and workout plans and all this kind of thing. And I gave into that. Like, it seemed like this is what fit people do. So I did what fit people do. And although in the beginning it did help me to maintain my weight loss, after a while it really started to kind of work against me, because it became almost like an obsession. So that was when I really had to dive into the self-love journey, because I started putting a little bit of weight back on, and I was beating myself up for putting this weight back on, and I was still healthy, and I was still capable, and I was still eating well, and there was nothing I should have been mad at myself for, besides I had gone up a pant size. And that was when I realized that the whole first part of this journey, I thought that I was embracing self-love, But what was actually happening was it was all conditional love. Like I was loving and proud of myself because I had lost 100 pounds. I was loving and proud of myself because I had ran a marathon, or because I had, completed this or done this or whatever. I wasn't loving myself for no reason at all. So I actually started to feel like this was actually another one of those gifts that appears like contrast to really teach me a lesson in that this, like, you're not really loving yourself in the way that you think you are. And I would say that the more significant part of my journey, it doesn't seem that way because it's not such a physical difference compared to the first part. But I would say that this is the most significant part of my journey, the part where I'm really learning to love myself for no reason other than I am awesome. Like,
yes, you are.
I just am myself. This is who I am, and it doesn't matter what that looks like or what size that is or what that self is going through. It's just loving myself because this is who I was created to be, whatever part of the journey that I'm on. And now I would say it's taking me into a place where I think this new phase I'm in is really going to be the easiest maintenance, where from the beginning until now, or until this part of the transformation started, maintenance was really kind of a struggle for me. Maintenance was more about resisting gaining a pound. And if I've learned anything, what we resist persists. So as long as I kept fighting of, no, I can never gain a pound again, I always must be 100 pounds lighter, it was just, the universe was gonna throw it at me. So once I kind of surrendered and said, you know what, my body is going to fluctuate. Normal human bodies fluctuate. I was able to kind of step into the place that I'm going to now of full self-love and true body acceptance.
That's amazing. And, I also think that, for women out there that do fluctuate with their weight, and I'm one of those women, weight goes up and down. And my new perspective on it is actually the weight is always a teacher.
Yes.
It comes, as soon as I put on 5 or 6 pounds, things start to feel a little bit tight. I kind of check in what's going on in my world, because it's always just allowing me to recognize that there is a change happening, or that I need to change, or that something needs to shift. And it's the first thing that I notice. So rather than allow momentum to really knock you down and, put you in hospital with an illness, I'm actually quite grateful for 5 or 6 pounds of weight, because I can react to that and say, okay, I can see where I need to shift. And so I'm almost learning to love the fluctuations. It's still a journey, but it really is that big teacher, and if you can actually just love it. And and another thing that just came to mind, a friend of mine, gorgeous baby, and babies are just, they're full of their little fat rolls, and you just want to squidge them, and you think they're beautiful, and it's almost like, when does that stop becoming beautiful?
Yes. Oh, I love that. That is
right.
Awesome. Yes. I had a similar experience once. My hand was, I'm not exactly sure how I was holding it, but I was holding it in some way where it was all wrinkly over here. And I was looking at it and thinking to myself, why don't I have a problem with these wrinkles, but I have a problem with these wrinkles?
Yeah.
Why is that a thing? Well, nobody ever told me something was wrong with my hand wrinkle, It's really interesting, but I love that baby example. That's
I know. So I keep looking at my little rolls of fat and oh, you're so cute.
Yes, I love that. I really do. I have a little bit of a roll on my arm that I've had since infancy. And this is one of the things that's been harder for me to accept about myself, because it's even at my lowest weight, it was there. It's just a permanent roll unless I do something about it surgically, which at this time I don't desire to do that. But now when I'm thinking of that, like, as a baby, looking at my baby pictures, it is adorable. And I really think that that's going to help me take my acceptance of my arms to a new level. So thank you.
Yay! That's what we call co-creating.
Yes, that was awesome.
So you've moved on from sort of focusing on the coaching around the weight loss, and you're moving more into more of a holistic kind of lifestyle. Is that the way you're sort of heading now?
I guess we could say that, yes. For a little while, it was like strictly weight loss, and then it was like super nutrition. And now I'm trying to, I almost don't want to put a label on it. I'm really kind of removing myself from having a set label. But yeah, I guess we could say a holistic approach. My goal is to help women, I do want people to be healthy. That's the thing, is I do think that health is important. I think that eating healthy food and learning to enjoy it, or finding healthy foods you actually do like, is super important. I think moving your body and stretching your body and being active is super important. But the bigger component that is too often overlooked is the way that we speak to ourselves and what we believe about ourselves. And a person can do, this I also think has a little bit to do with me putting a little bit of weight back on. A person can do all the things in the world to lose the weight. They can do all the exercises and eat all the healthy foods and drink all the water and hire all the coaches. But if a person deep down in their soul does not believe that they are deserving of a body that they like, or are deserving of health or happiness or whatever it is that they're chasing after, it doesn't matter how many things you do, you're not going to get it. That's why there's so many celebrities out there who have endless resources, trainers and chefs and all these things, yet they still are struggling. It's not about having all those things or doing all of the right steps or making all the right investments. It really is about how we feel about ourselves deep down. So I feel like if I can help women embrace and discover what they're truly worth and what they truly deserve, it won't only roll over into their relationships or their work life, but it also will roll over into their physical life, where they will treat their body differently because they feel differently about their body.
Yeah, absolutely. It's beautiful. There really is something in that saying of, love yourself to wealth. Because
I haven't heard that, but I like it.
I might have just made it up. I come up with these little phrases, but it's that whole point of the more worthy you feel, the more you can attract more worth in many ways, abundance in many ways. So that's amazing. So what are you focusing on for you now? What are you creating, even just for you? Never mind for your work or for other people. What are you looking to manifest within your own world?
To manifest within my own world. Well, right now I actually am back on the money manifestation thing, because when I was working with the coach 3 years ago, like I said, I got myself out of a position where I wasn't necessarily living check to check anymore. But what I had asked the universe for was, I want enough money for everything I want and everything I need. And I attracted that to myself. I have enough money for all of my wants and all of my needs. But I forgot to ask for extra.
Damn.
Because I would love to have a nice savings account, you know what I mean? Maybe invest in some things. And that was kind of part of what I left out. And I was, maybe I could have been a little more specific, but it's a journey and it's a learning lesson. So I'm kind of back on that part of my money manifestation, where now I want to create, rather than creating stability, which was my goal in the beginning, now I'm looking to create wealth. So that's something I'm doing for myself. And I'm also manifesting a family. I really would love to have a husband. I would love to have a baby, but I'm not the type that I'm just gonna, settle for whoever. I'm looking for my soulmate. So I'm manifesting true, unconditional, romantic love into my life. And then hopefully from that, someday I will have a beautiful little baby.
Oh, you have to see another lady that I is part of the interview series, a lady called Dawn. Wait till you see her interview. I mean, it's amazing in terms of how she talks about love, unconditional love, and connecting with soulmate. There's a sadness to the story as well, but very empowering and just an amazing woman. So you'll have to look out for that one. But it's definitely it's something that you need to have all of those feelings within yourself, to be full within yourself. It's not a case of needing somebody to complete you or add to you. You're already containing all of those sensations within.
Yes, but, the person you share it with is a bonus, not the core part.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I look forward to seeing that coming to fruition for you. And so tell me about some of the things that you're doing work-wise as well. You've got some retreats coming up, I think.
Yes, I have a retreat coming up in January. This will be the 5th retreat that I have facilitated. The first 3 were here in Miami. The last one was in Belize, and our next one in January is in Belize also. Yes. We have an amazing location in the jungle off the Moho River in South Belize. We're in a Mayan village, so we spend a lot of time with the locals and learning about their culture. We go on tons of adventures that kind of help to build up confidence and self-esteem. And then we also have a bunch of workshops there that help people to really understand the law of attraction. We also have a workshop about self-love and body acceptance, and some cool things that kind of put together all the pieces that we've talked about today. But the idea is to send these ladies home with the knowingness that they can do things that they never thought that they could do, and that they don't necessarily have to do it in the way that they always thought they had to. Like, they don't go home with a meal plan and a workout plan and say, great, now I have the blueprint to lose 100 pounds. They go home with maybe the self-worth that allows them to take the steps for them to get to a healthy weight. So really, it's focusing on changing the mindset of a person to feeling like something is wrong with them, to helping them realize that I am awesome, I am strong, I am capable, and I'm worthy and deserving.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I just published a memoir also in December, so it's about a half a year that's been out now, and that's all about my story and kind of the contrast I had to experience to get to the life that I'm experiencing now.
Yeah, and it's so true that there are so many gifts that come out of our contrast. It's almost like the more challenges we go through, the bigger rockets of desire we launch out there, and then when the momentum takes place and you line up with it, it's like boom, it's wow.
Yes, it absolutely is.
Oh my goodness. Well, it sounds like you're doing incredible things. So before we finish off, what would be your biggest advice to people that are just maybe starting either on their self-love journey? Because, I get a lot of people will say to me, yeah, self-love, I haven't got time. Or they don't really understand, what does it mean, self-love? Does it mean taking a bubble bath? Does it mean, putting cream on your skin? And I think it goes so much deeper than those surface things. How do you describe it to your women that you're working with?
For me, self-love is definitely a lot of different things. One of the biggest things with self-love, I would say, is self-respect. And that shows up in a lot of different ways. But one of the things that I like to say is it's either hell yeah or no. So when somebody invites you to do something, if your thought about it is that, yes, I would love to do that, saying no, like we're not obligated to say yes to things that we don't want to do. Treating your body with respect, meaning that we're consciously trying to put healthy foods into our bodies, that we are giving our body the exercise that they need. And this isn't necessarily in a sense of I need to lose weight. This applies to everybody. There are plenty of women who have average sized bodies who still have to add this component, or should add this component, in my opinion. It's not about weight loss as much as it is just respecting yourself and taking care of your body. Self-love to me also means admitting when you need help and accepting help, because nobody's a one-woman show as much as some of us may want to be. That's just not the way it is. And accepting help is when we receive something like help, it, like we just talked about with the donations and the giving away for the money manifestation, when we accept something, we're really providing a gift for the person who's giving it to us also. So letting go of the idea of thinking that accepting help and accepting anything from other people is a selfish thing, accepting that it's actually a disservice to not only yourself, but to the other person to not accept. I think that's a big part of self-love. I think self-love also is, like you said, it can be taking a bubble bath or getting a massage or taking a day for you, but it's definitely not all glamour. Self-love, a huge part of self-love for me is crying. I am a cry baby. I cry all the time. And sometimes people think, oh my goodness, like, no, you don't need to cry. And I'm like, girl, do not stop me. Like, this is, to me, crying is a gift to yourself also. It's one of the best ways to be able to release things that are built up inside of us. And if we don't release them in a healthy way, like crying, we often release them in unhealthy ways, like blowing up on people or hurting ourselves or stuffing our faces or just acting out in other ways. So crying, I will never tell somebody, oh, don't cry. I encourage it. Let it out.
Cry, baby, cry.
Yes. So
no, I agree. Yeah.
Allowing yourself to cry is definitely a thing. What else would I say? I think self-love is so multifaceted. There's so much that has to do with this. But really, I guess, allowing yourself to be who you are. Just I used to have a thing where there was a part of me who felt like I'm not enough. And then there was another part of me who felt like I'm way too much. And living in those worlds is a miserable place to be. So kind of taking yourself to a place of realizing I might be weird, or I might be quirky, or I might be loud or quiet or outspoken, or whatever it is that you feel about yourself that's not okay, is actually perfect. The world needs that kind of contrast, and you were made in the way that you are for a reason. So really kind of embracing who you truly are instead of stepping into a role that, you know, family or society or religion or whatever has told us that we should be. Self-love.
Yeah. No, it really is. And I think it's also embracing, as you said, the edges, the things that maybe you're not so proud of, or, you know, some of the dark shadows that you may feel are there. It's all part of the same pot. And you can't just say, oh, well, I like my hands, but I don't like my arms, as an example. You have to love all of it. But what do you think was the biggest thing that you needed to make these steps? Did you think it was courage, or was it just a case of that you were just done living the way you were living?
Yeah, I actually have never really thought about that question. And now that I'm thinking about it, for me, I think a rock bottom is a beautiful thing. Like, so many people like, oh, you know, rock bottom is a bad place to be. I think rock bottom is wonderful. Like, a phoenix has to rise from ashes. Like, that's how it has to go. So in my experience, I guess most of my greatest changes have happened because something in me said, I'm not going to accept this the way it is for a minute longer. And it kind of just lights a fire in me. And that is not necessarily what people want to hear a lot of the time, because I get asked all the time, what motivated you? What motivated you? And I'm like, okay, well, really screw your life up. Really bad.
And you'll want to change it.
Is going to want to change it. Exactly. But that's kind of part of trusting the universe and knowing that sometimes when really seemingly bad things are happening, they're actually priming you for the greatest thing that could ever happen in your life. Like, I spent years shaming myself and crying about my past and thinking I'm ruined. And I always had this dream of being able to be seen and to help people and be on like a big platform. And then I really started to minimize myself because I thought, oh, I can't be seen. My past is going to haunt me. People are going to judge me and all of those kind of things. And it's just, none of it's true. Like, I was really doing everybody a disservice by thinking that I had to stay small because of all these little things that I thought were wrong with me, or I thought that this was something bad that had happened. And now I look at it as like, thank God I was homeless. Thank God I had to sell my body. Thank God I made all these really, really bad decisions. Well, seemingly bad. Now I look at them like, okay, maybe you think it's bad, but in my story, I know that this was a great decision for me. And you know, I've cried, I can't even count how many tears of joy I've cried just in gratitude for this journey that I had. And a lot of people are surprised when I meet them, and it's not every day I meet somebody new and I'm like, hi, I used to be a homeless prostitute. But there's, when I'm in a situation like this, or some kind of personal development workshop, or I'm facilitating, or I'm hosting or speaking, and I just come out and mention that, people are like, whoa, like, I can't believe that you just tell people that. But why would I not? It's nothing to be ashamed of. This is literally one of the greatest things that has ever happened to me in my entire life. Like, why would
I love it? I totally agree with you. And then you're just giving them permission to be themselves, because you know, if they can even have half of your story and they're keeping it quiet. So
that's what I love to use it as an icebreaker. Like, look, I don't care whose baby you dropped, or what class you failed, or what it is that's beating you up. Guess what I did? If I can embrace and not just, you know, move past, but love this part of my story, I'm pretty sure that your story is lovable too.
No, that's amazing, really. There is really something to be said about being authentic, and authentic really in the sense of just being all of who you are. And that's when the universe opens up and gives you absolutely everything that you're asking for, because there's no resistance. You can't be resistance from your true self, you know?
No, absolutely. I'm feeling emotional right now, actually.
I am just blown away by, you know, I often say to clients I'm working with, or friends, you know, when you can get to the point where your contrast really is a gift, like not just a little box of chocolates gift, but like where you are so grateful for the shit that's happened, and you are so in that space. And I'm excited to get to that space with a couple of things that have happened in the last couple of years. I can recognize the gifts and I can appreciate them, but I'm not fully in that space of, you know, getting the cheerleaders out. But you have given me the inspiration to know that that's the next level. That is definitely the next level.
I am happy to do that. You know, they call it the onion for a reason. There are so many layers and layers and layers to our personal journeys and transformations. And there are even parts of my life now where, you know, that's one of the things I fully embraced, but there are other parts of myself that I'm still working to really love and embrace too. Like I had said earlier, arms, or I recently had a shift in my eating style that feels kind of weird to me. And that's something that I'm working to embrace. Or like I said, and I have put on, compared to my lowest weight, I have put on a little bit of weight. So that's something I'm still working to see the beauty in. But it really does help to be able to look back and think, if what I consider to be the worst thing that ever happened to me. Like at one point I was in jail. Like it was the worst thing.
Oh, okay. Well, we didn't get to that part of the story.
Yeah, I was arrested. That's how my family found out what I was doing. I had to call my parents begging to bail me out, which they didn't. But that was also a beautiful thing too. Everything has worked out perfectly. But when I look at these little things now that seem like so small, like an arm or like gaining a couple pounds, it's like, if this worst thing ever could be the best thing ever, there's no way that these little things are not going to turn out to be gifts as well. No. It's just a matter of trusting the process. I can't necessarily force myself to feel a different way, but trusting the process, and that I know where I want to be, and I know that I've done it before. So I trust that eventually I will learn to accept everything the way that I've accepted other things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And where do you get your inspiration from? Is it from your own story, or do you feel, you know, how do you connect with your higher self? For me, I do it through running, meditating, but it's different for everybody. How do you really tune into yourself?
Meditation is a big thing for me too. Within, I would say, the last 2 years, but more intensely, maybe the last 6 months, I realized the gift of meditation. In the beginning, I kind of thought nothing is happening, and I just kept trying it anyways. And then one day after the meditation, when I was still thinking during the meditation, I'm not sure if I'm doing it. And then when I opened my eyes after, it was the first time I felt like I came back into my body, which I never felt like I had left my body. So I'm like, wow, I think I did it. And then after that, I was able to sort of tune in a little bit more. So meditation has become a huge thing for me. But I also, like you, I like to use running as a moving meditation. I really do think that when I'm just running along, like the things that happen in my brain, like it's just, without effort, the ideas or the light bulb moments are just powering off. That was where I got the idea for the retreat that I host. That was how I wrote most of my book in my head before I ever put it in print. And yeah, moving meditation is definitely a big thing for me. But I'm a huge believer and advocate for going to different workshops and classes and play shops and stuff. Since that first coach I ever hired, I've hired lots of people, and I've gone to lots of events and seminars and things. And it's not so much, you know, that these people are going to be able to offer you something that you can't learn or find out for yourself, because I do believe everything we need is in us already, but it just gives you an opportunity to have somebody help bring it out of you. And even more importantly, it puts me in a community of people who are like-minded. What they say about, you know, if you look at your 5 closest friends, you're likely to be number 6 with whatever they're like. Investing in the opportunity to go to different classes and stuff in person, or even if it's virtual, just the opportunities that allow me to connect with people on a similar journey, I really think that helps me to move forward with my journey, because I have other people who understand me and can bring me back, you know, help me level up and bring me back to a high space, instead of inspiring or encouraging or, you know, jumping into a pity party or a low vibe with me.
No, absolutely. And that's exactly why, you know, I launched the Abraham Chicks, just because I was traveling, and then I was in a space where there weren't kind of like-minded people around me so much. And it's like, well, okay, then I'm just going to have to create my own community.
Yeah,
you know, and
exactly.
it's amazing, because already, without even fully launching, people are just popping up. Oh, that looks like an interesting person. And you know, anybody that I've asked, would you like to, you know, be part of it or to be part of the interview? They're excited. There's nobody that's even saying, well, we haven't seen what it looks like and we haven't seen an example. No questions, just, okay, the energy feels good, let's do it. So yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. Yes.
Just guiding you to people who trust.
Exactly.
The proof I trust.
I like that. I trust. Well, it's been such a joy, Ashley, to have you on the show, and your energy and enthusiasm is just contagious. So keep shining your light and your magic. And
thank you, Tina.
I can't wait to see what comes next, because wow, what a story so far.
Thank you so much for having me, Tina. I was honored to be asked to be a part of your show. And I think it'll be a great thing to know that, you know, those of us who put the trust in you, it feels good to know that we got to be some of your first to help you create this new endeavor. But thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you.